Well, all right. Welcome back to As It Should Be. Paul Bertolino here in the world-famous As It Should Be studios. Crystal Durant.
Hello.
Tommy Von Voigt. And the Ramones. Yeah, we are going to be discussing the Ramones catalog. We're going to be ranking the complete Ramones catalog. First album to Adios Amigos. The lot. Not the live album. Just the studio albums. And, what is that? 14?
Something like that.
I think it's 14 albums.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's a little break from our albums of the year series, and I don't know. Why don't we get started? Hey ho, let's go!
Jesus Christ!
1, 2, 3, 4, Tommy.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tommy is going to start first.
Oh my God!
He's going to start first. Why do I say? I don't know how to speak English, people.
And then she'll start second, and
Yeah,
you'll
she can
start
start
third.
second. I'm going to start third.
Okay, so the Ramones are a band that are very near and dear to me. I fell in love with this band when I was in junior high, and they absolutely blew my goddamn mind. They really, truly did. And as I've talked before about my history in the punk scene, you know, in some ways they were kind of the gateway drug to getting into bands that are actually legit terrible. But the Ramones, I still love them dearly to this day. But unfortunately, every Ramones fan that doesn't have their head up their ass does at some point eventually have to square themselves with the fact that these guys have a lot of really, really bad albums.
I mean,
they really do. And
maybe. I guess we'll find out.
Sadly, the bad seem to outweigh the good in some ways. But we'll see if they agree. Perhaps they won't.
We'll see how this works.
We'll see how it works.
Yeah.
But I'm going to start things off at the bottom. And we're kicking things off with my worst of from the Ramones, and that would be Adios Amigos from 1995. Now, I did decide to go ahead and just come up with a little bit of a write-up, very, very brief, just so I have my talking points. And for this, I wrote, a humiliating way to end things. This sounds like a bad impression of the bands that built careers off of ripping off the Ramones sound. I mean, this is an embarrassment, this album. It really honestly is. And it's really stunning to me that at this point in their career, when they were established legends, even though they never really got the commercial success that they had hoped for all this time. At this point, 1995, they were legends. Okay, other rock bands are all wearing Ramones shirts on stage.
Yes.
You know, Eddie Vedder's coming out and doing songs with them, blah, 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 blah. Like, the new crop of rock stars all respected these guys. I don't understand how it is that they couldn't have just gotten some people to come in and help them maybe write some goddamn songs at this point. Were they too proud? Did they not know what was wrong?
Well, I will say that one thing that really just slapped me in the face going through these records and getting ready to, or trying to place them, listening to these later ones, I realized, you know, because I always thought, oh, it's really too bad that they broke up, and, you know, too bad they didn't live on and be a band. I looked at this and I went, man, they were fucking out of gas.
They were out of gas, hated each other. They were creatively completely spent, and I think they also probably lost the ability to tell good from bad.
Well, unfortunately, that the thing that the Ramones did, as great as it was far too easy to slip into parody.
Yes.
Far too easy.
Which happens a few albums back from here. And, you know, there are other things that are working against them. CJ Ramone was not really doing them any favors. They got CJ to replace Dee Dee, and they were all excited. Oh, we got this new guy, this young guy, CJ Ramone. You know, he's going to do some singing. He's going to write. I don't want to hear CJ Ramone singing. I didn't want to hear Dee Dee singing. I don't want to hear Dee Dee's replacement singing, even more. CJ Ramone, not a good songwriter. I mean, it's just goofy shit. And there's some songs on this album that they did get Dee Dee right, because I think after Dee Dee left, they kept going to that well for material, and he would just be like, okay, I need money this week, and he would just scribble something on a fucking tissue and hand it. Here, go record this, and it's just horse shit. Like, I think Making Monsters from My Friends is one of them.
Oh, yeah, and CJ sings that one.
CJ sings that. I think The Crusher is another one. I'm the Crusher, king of the ring. Like, what the fuck is this crap? I mean, even me being a kid in like 1995, like I got this record and I'm like, okay, it's the final Ramones. They knew it was going to be their final record. Everyone was like, it's going to be the last Ramones record.
Right.
And my mom went and got it for me, I think at the Wiz. And I was all excited. Nobody beats them. Go to the Wiz and select it. Take it off the rack. If it's whack, we should have put this back.
Well, yeah, your mom didn't follow those rules, did she?
She didn't know the rules of Rob Bass and
She
DJ
didn't know it was
Easy Rock.
whack.
Yeah.
And, she gives it to me and I listen to it. I'm like, well, that's the last time I listened to this record. It's bad. It's just a bad album.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's bad. So moving on from there, we go to 1987's Halfway to Sanity. So, all right, so here's what I wrote. They've completely lost the plot at this point. Pretty sad that nobody was willing to be honest with them. Also, Worm Man? Joey, what the fuck?
Worm Man.
God damn this album. So the Ramones started going on this different direction in the 80s where they definitely became a caricature. They became a parody of themselves. And they were trying to stay relevant and be hard and heavy. And every time they tried to do it, it just sounded more and more out of touch. Like, you know how, like, Aerosmith jumped the shark officially when they put out Living on the Edge, and we're like, uh-oh. Or Def Leppard with Let's Get Rocked and the cartoon video, and you're like, oh, no, they're out of touch now.
Yeah.
Or, like,
a cartoon.
They became a cartoon. Or later era Michael Jackson. It's like, oh, no. Well, the Ramones just basically had a string of albums where it was just that.
Yeah. Well, the Ramones, they would just, they just did what they did, and so once it became that, it just turned into that over and over and over again. Nobody stopped and went, okay, that didn't work last time, let's do something different this time. They just kept going.
Yeah, and no one's, I don't know, no one's, Joey is too busy being out of his mind, Johnny is too busy voting for Reagan, no one could talk to these guys. So, moving on from there, we have 1993's Acid Eaters, and I wrote for this, basically pointless. A few well-chosen and well-done covers, such as Substitute and My Back Pages, but the rest might have sounded better on paper. This album is a waste of everyone's time.
It's a waste of everyone's time.
It truly is. Moving on, 1986 Animal Boy. The only fucking reason this album ranks ahead of Halfway to Sanity, both of these albums suck equally. The only reason Animal Boy is better, I wrote cringeworthy and embarrassing, 8-man hop, 5 question marks, except for Bonzo Goes to Bitburg and Something to Believe In, which sound like they were stolen from another album entirely. I don't know how that happened. How they managed to come up with those 2 songs and the rest of it is just amateur hour.
Well, you know why? There were a couple of albums during that period where there would be a couple of songs that are different. Jean Beauvoir, or however you pronounce the dude from Plasmatics. Jean Beauvoir from Plasmatics. He produced the standout tracks. He produced them. That's why. That's what's going on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense then.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So, moving on, then we get to 1984's Too Tough to Die. Often hailed as a return to form and an answer to the harder, faster punk bands that they had influenced. Nope. Sounds like a desperate attempt to stay relevant. They are wearing clothes that don't fit. Howling at the Moon is fantastic, though. And I believe that is Dave Stewart, if I'm not mistaken. Is it not? The Eurythmics guy.
I don't know.
I think that's the guy from the Eurythmics. Worked with them on Howling at the Moon.
Oh, yeah, okay, now that I didn't know. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Next on my list, we've got 1992's Mondo Bizarro. To me, this record sounds like they finally got their mid-80s formula figured out. Whether or not you like that formula is an entirely different matter altogether. Not a horrible album, but also absolutely not a good album.
Yeah. See, that's the thing, and that's the thing, people. I mean, all you Ramones fans watching this, just like your blood is boiling. We love the Ramones.
But, worship the Ramones.
Some of the best bands in the world have those later albums that just don't cut it. And
I want to like this album. I wanted to like this album. And this album opens strong with Censor shit. It's like, actually, we might be onto something here. This might be going somewhere good. And then we get to just ridiculous shit like Cabbies on Crack. What?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember putting on that album and thinking the same thing. The first song was like, okay, yeah, this one is much better. And then the rest of it was not much better.
Yeah, that just goes south. Next on my list, only marginally better than Mondo Bizarro, we have 1989's Brain Drain, another album that was considered a bit of a comeback. It's not so much a comeback and more of a return to a time when they made records that were just kind of meh, except for a few strong standouts. So basically a return to the early 80s. Brain Drain, the production is pretty kick-ass. There are a couple of really high points on this record, but a lot of this record is just weak sauce, man. It just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next. Now, mind you, we're still in the string of bad albums. We haven't even gotten out of the bad Ramones
We're not
albums
getting
yet.
into the okay albums
No,
yet.
we haven't.
There's quite a string of those shit records anyway.
We're about to start knocking on the door of getting out of that. So my next is 1983's Subterranean Jungle. And here's what I wrote about this one. The wheels are really starting to come off at this point. A couple of essential tracks, a whole lot of filler, and the beginning of some really cringeworthy shit too, such as Every Time I Eat Vegetables, It Makes Me Think of You. This album starts on a low point with a substandard cover of A Little Bit of Soul and remains uneven throughout. And on top of that, the production sucks. And Paul was just talking to me before we started shooting. This is something he pointed out that I was even leaving off of my commentary, but it's true. The production is terrible. It sounds like crap.
Yeah. But I'll talk more about that.
Yeah, you'll definitely. Yeah, you got a lot to say about that. So then, all right, we get out of the absolute fucking dreck. And we get to 1978's Road to Ruin. Okay.
Talk about not being dreck. Oh, man.
Yes, but I don't love Road to Ruin.
Yeah, clearly. I'm thinking about some of the stuff you have above it.
I don't love Road to Ruin, okay? In fact, I kind of really don't love Road to Ruin, but there's some things on Road to Ruin that actually are really great. But to me, so I wrote, it sounds a bit like they'd exhausted the well of material that made up their first few records, which is true. As some hardcore Ramones fans know, when they started out, they just wrote a string of songs, enough to make up basically like their first three albums. And what they actually did is they went in and they kind of recorded them in the order they had written them, and that makes up the first run of classic Ramones albums.
Which is a good way to do it, too, because that's what gives you that sense of them progressing.
And that's why it sounds clearly like they progressed. They didn't say, oh my God, we've got all the material that can make up this amazing album. Let's do that on their first record. They didn't do that.
Yeah, and then do the outtakes after that.
They grow dramatically.
Yeah.
But then it's like they're kind of running out of gas. And they also, at this point in time, they start playing with the sound a bit here. And I think they do it to mixed results.
Well, they kind of start doing different things. Like, there's even little passages of almost lead guitar happening here and there.
Which is not Johnny.
Which is kind of weird. Like, oh, lead guitar on a Ramones record?
Yeah. So my next one, and I knew going into this was going to be, I'm going to get some hate for this. I'm going to get some shade. But beating out Road to Ruin, I've got 1981's Pleasant Dreams. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Interesting.
Here's what I wrote. In many ways, the last of the classic era albums, the last to really have that classic Ramones sound before they started to sound a bit like they were parodying themselves. Not a perfect record, but a fun one. I recognize this is a problematic album, but to me, this marks the final classic Ramones album. I know that some people end that one album sooner. I know that. I realize that.
Well, we already discussed this earlier.
I realize that. And I know Paul's going to have a lot to say about Pleasant Dreams when we get to his turn. But that's where it falls for me.
Okay.
So now...
Well, also I knew, because you've talked about this before, I knew that was going to rank a little higher for you.
Yes. Coming in at number 4, 1976's Ramones, the self-titled debut.
At number 4, okay.
At number 4?
Number 4.
Wow.
It's the prototype. But like all prototypes, there's room for improvement. I felt like sonically there was room for improvement. I felt as far as the depth of the songwriting, there was room for improvement. And to me, the first album, I think, is a little bit one-dimensional. And it always sat that way with me. Because when I got into the Ramones, I got the compilations, all the stuff in More Volumes 1 and 2, which actually I came to find out later make up the entirety of the first 4 albums in order with a couple of bonus tracks, like SLUG was on there.
It's a one-stop shop.
If that's all you got is those 2 compilations, you're not doing too bad.
Yeah.
But I always kind of like would skip past the first half of all the stuff in More Volume 1, not realizing I was mostly skipping past the majority of the first album with a couple of things that I would like. I liked a couple songs that were really fucking awesome on that first record, but I would mainly be skipping forward to the second album, not knowing I was doing that. So, but skipping past that, we've got 1977's Rocket to Russia. Rocket to Russia. damn close to a perfect punk album.
It's close.
If you're looking to make a pop punk record and you come up with Rocket to Russia, you're not doing too bad.
Yeah, you're doing pretty well.
But beating that, also from 1977, Leave Home. Holy shit. Holy shit. If you don't like Ramones Leave Home, this is not a band for you.
Leave Tommy's home.
You need to GTFO. If you don't like Ramones Leave Home, you do not like the Ramones. This one is that's the one. I mean, Leave Home, if you want to talk the classic Ramones sound, Ramones Leave Home. Holy fucking shit. And yet, that's my number 2. Because topping them all, End of the Century. End of the Century has a magic to it that I've never gotten from any other recording. There's something about this album. I don't know. It's the perfect combination of where they were at that point in time creatively, the songs they brought in, the collaboration with Phil Spector. I know a lot of people felt like this was a dud, like it didn't work. To me, this absolutely worked. I think this album is magic, and the original agreement was they were going to do 2 albums together, and this one was not a huge hit record, so neither party decided to go in for round 2. I would have absolutely loved to hear what Phil could have done on a follow-up with these guys.
Well, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that they would have put the kibosh on the second one because, yeah, it wasn't a big record, but none of their albums were big. So it's like, at that time, you know what I mean? And I remember at the time that album being big enough. I mean, I was a kid. I was aware of that record. I mean, I knew, rock and roll radio. You saw the video on MTV. Well, MTV wasn't around yet, but you know what I mean? It wasn't like a flop.
For the first 6 Ramones records, the band was really desperately hoping to break big, like a lot of their contemporaries that they came out of that scene with. Talking Heads was blowing up. Blondie was huge. They were thinking that it was also going to happen to the Ramones. I mean, if you listen to their first string of albums, it's like, I mean, some of this, how the fuck did Sheena as a Punk Rocker not sell 1 million goddamn copies? Well, it didn't. And the record company was just as mystified as the Ramones were. And they started playing with the formula. Okay, we're not going to have Tommy Ramone produce the records anymore. Now we're going to pair you up with, Phil Spector. He'll make a hit out of you. And Phil was all hot to trot. He's like, we're going to do it. I love these guys. This is fantastic. The working relationship was tense, to say the least.
Well, welcome to
Phil Spector.
World, yeah.
But they come out of it, and they didn't have a big runaway success record. It wasn't the big smash hit album that they thought was going to put them at the top of the charts. And then, so for the next album, they do Pleasant Dreams, and they get Graham Goldman from, I think, 10cc.
Graham Goldman did the next one.
The record company's like, how will we pair you up with Graham Goldman and see if he can give you a hit record? And it was after Pleasant Dreams went nowhere that I think it was Johnny that said at that point he knew that it was never going to happen, and they were always just going to be touring and fighting it out and taking vans around the country, and they were never going to get beyond where they were at. But for the first 6 records, that was really the intention. It was like, any record now, guys, this band is going to be enormous.
What
and it just didn't happen.
If they got Mutt Lange? What would have happened there?
Oh my God! I would have loved to have heard a Mutt Lange Ramones record.
Oh, that it just like hit me, because I was going to jokingly say, they should have gotten Phil Ramone, and then I went, no, who would they really? And I thought, fuck, Mutt Lange.
Could you fucking imagine Mutt Lange at that point in time? What he would have brought to the table and brought out of them?
That would have done it.
That would have made my head explode. I'll tell you right now, that album that doesn't exist is my actual favorite Ramones
it's
album.
Number 1.
The Mutt Lange produced Ramones album is my favorite Ramones album by far.
Somebody make an AI Mutt Lange produced Ramones album.
But since we don't have that, yes, End of the Century. Clearly, the classic Ramones albums are really, truly the first 3. Road to Ruin does start playing with the formula a little bit. You can kind of argue whether or not it belongs with the holy trinity of the first 3. End of the Century, though, there's just something incredibly magical about this album. I absolutely fucking love it. I fell in love with it the first listen, and every time I listen to it, it's still as fresh as the first day. And it just takes me back to those same emotions and feelings I had when I was listening to this album as a teenager. I love this album. And that's me.
That's our Tommy.
All right, should we go to
commercial?
It's a break time. I don't know if there are actually Ramones commercials, but We'll see what we can find. Maybe we'll see what we come up with here. We are back.
Yeah.
And Crystal is now going to rank the Ramones albums.
All right. So let me do a little Crystal clarification here. I love the Ramones. They were fucking fantastic. But I only have 5 albums on my list.
You just said fuck all the rest of them, huh?
Out of 14.
Wow.
And here's the reason why.
That says a lot.
So when that first record came out, it was 76. I was in 6th grade. I was listening to college radio, and that's where I heard it. Because it was some
That's where you would have heard
college kid who was just like, oh, fucking A, Ramones, blah, 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 New York City, da-da-da, and played the whole album, front to back. And me and a select bunch of friends, heard this college radio station playing at Muhlenberg College play this record for the first week that it came out over and over again. And it was just like, what the hell is this? Punk rock, American punk rock. This is fucking amazing. So we were really, really into it. And then as I got older, like I've probably said before, I was here the summer of Sam, 77. And my older cousins, Gene and Shady, got me into CBGB's and saw the Ramones play there. And as I got older, because I'm here in the Northeast Corridor, primarily Philadelphia, but here in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Delaware, DC, whatever, there's a route that all these bands play, and literally over and over and over and over and over again. So like my friend Dorothy Morrison and a handful of other people, we saw the Ramones 1,000 times.
You saw them back in the late 70s?
Yeah.
They played 1,000 times.
Like
just in this area.
You could not escape the Ramones. Literally, you could not, because they're playing in your bedroom. They're over there across the street in the garage. Yeah. They're in the bar down the street. They played everywhere all of the fucking time. I saw them at CBGB's I don't know how many times. They were always there, completely ubiquitous, because it was the Ramones, and this was the big thing. It's the early 70s. Lots of things were changing. So I have, as I've said before, very specific memories that I want to keep in this box, and I don't want anything to touch that. So that's why I only have those albums on my list. And of course, they're going to be the early ones, because I listened to all of them. I didn't buy anything past, what was the last thing I bought? End of the Century was the last album that I bought. But I did listen to every other record that they put out, and I was like, oh yeah, this sucks. I don't like this. Because it's not what I heard that day on the college radio station. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have, I'm not saying that they should have stopped. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have stretched and done stuff, like the Phil Spector thing. I had super high hopes for that. Phil Spector, they love the 50s, the wall of sound. Like, this is going to be fucking amazing. And it was not fucking amazing the way that I wanted it to be fucking amazing.
but I will say, to cut in, on paper, the Ramones produced by Phil Spector, you kind of go, oh, holy shit, that's like the dream team, you would think. Yeah,
and, I liked it, but it wasn't what I wanted it to be. I'll just say that. So, coming in at number 5, Road to Ruin. I'm not even going to talk about these records, because why? I don't need to, because we all know what they sound like, and you just gave your whole spiel, and I don't need to go and ad infinitum, because it's the Ramones, you know what they sound like. My number 4 is End of the Century, and that's the last one that I purchased, because I felt I I didn't need to buy them anymore. I listened to them, but I didn't buy them. My number 3 is Leave Home. Yeah. That one, I don't know. It
You're not as into that one?
yeah. I liked it. You know, I liked other ones better. Then number 2 was Rocket to Russia. And my number 1 is the first one, Ramones. Because again, time, place, in my heart, that's what I want. And the rest of it, no. I listen to them, don't like, no.
Well, I've got no strong opinions one way or the other on your list. No, I don't.
No, clearly you don't.
No.
Clearly you don't.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
None at all.
We shan't discuss it any further.
Yeah.
Well, look at it this way. None of those records that she didn't even discuss didn't rank higher than any of those albums.
Of course.
You know, so it's not like she went in there and went, well, above Leave Home is Brain Drain.
Yeah.
That's
Obviously, Acid Eaters beats out
That's
Yeah,
everything.
end
That's
of the
my
century.
number 1.
no insanity has taken place.
Right. Not that crazy.
You don't have a brain parasite right now.
And the other thing is that weren't the Ramones huge, like Talking Heads and Blondie and everybody else who came out of that scene? I believe it's because the Ramones are the Ramones. Like you were talking about, you know, this is Who music. And if you don't,
Yes.
then that's it. And what were they going to do? Make a reggae record? What were they going to do? Put strings on it? Like, it's the Ramones. This is what they do. They can't really jump that far out of that circle.
Yeah.
So it's not really going to be vastly different from Ramones to the last record. It's going to be basically the same thing. So for the masses, the Ramones are put in this box, and that's the Ramones, and that's that. They're not they're not doing anything different. They're not experimenting. They're not reaching. They're not, you know, they didn't make a disco record. They didn't, you know what I mean? Like, that's just it. So that, to me, that's why they weren't any bigger or any huger, or no matter who was going to produce them, they weren't going to be anything other than the Ramones. And that's it.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, which I don't even know if I'd want them to be different. I want them to stay this. That's enough for me. It's great. And, you know, like I just said, I'm obviously, because of seeing them so often at this particular time period, that is what I love. And that's that. And scene.
All right. Okay. Break time.
This is a House of Guitars commercial, but it's really for our records. Buy them so we can buy these things. This is a poem. This is the Ramones Rocket to Russia album, 385. And this is Ramones Leave Home. This is Linda Stein. This is Danny Field's partner. And this is the great Ramones. You buy the Rocket to Russia because the Ramones want to buy this Mosrite guitar here. Yeah. So buy this. That way the Ramones will be able to buy the Stan Electron and the Mosrite. Come on, you guys.
Okay. All right, we are back.
Spicy cat.
Okay. Well, my list,
What's on your list, Paul?
I only have 3 albums. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. I only have 1.
These are a bunch of Misfits albums. What did you do?
Misfits records. Yeah.
I do what I want.
Why do you have Nevermind the Bollocks on your list? What's going on
Yeah, it's a
here?
1 album list. Never mind the bullets. No. Actually, never mind the
Yeah, that's a whole separate
Yeah,
conversation.
that's no reason to even go into that.
Yeah.
All right, so my number 14, I have all 14 listed here. And my number 14, I actually have Acid Eaters at the bottom.
I was curious which was going to be your bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason why I ended up going with Acid Eaters is because it's just
bad.
Just bad covers.
It's
I mean,
bad
the
covers.
albums that came immediately before it are bad originals, but I mean, listening to them like the Substitute, they do this really fucking terrible version of Substitute,
man.
which somehow they were able to get Townsend on. He does the backing vocals,
The vocals on that.
That's him?
Well, maybe Joe McGinty plays keyboards on this record.
Yeah.
Does he really?
He plays keyboards on a couple of Ramones albums, and this is one of them.
Well, it's a terrible record.
Yeah, and it opens with a CJ vocal. The opening track is CJ singing. Yeah.
Enough said.
I mean, what else? Joey, what did I write? Joey sounds kind of shitty on the whole record. Yeah, he doesn't even, his voice isn't good. The version of Shape of Things to Come with CJ on vocals is actually, I think that actually kind of kicks. I'm into that. When I Was Young and 7 aren't bad. 7 is kind of smokes. Like, it's a really machine gun kind of... I mean, it's not great. I just, listening to that record, and I was looking for something positive to say, and I thought, well, this isn't great, but I don't think this is terrible, My Back Pages, on the other hand, is fucking terrible. Oh, man. Yeah.
The song selection is terrible. I mean, when you think of Ramones covers, I think of bubblegum pop and girl group stuff and surfy stuff. I mean, their early covers were all that kind of shit, and it worked.
Right. They should have done. They should have done fucking Ronette songs. They should have done.
Do some fucking Ohio Express, for Christ's sake. I mean, anything that's in your wheelhouse.
1914 Fruit Gum Company.
Exactly.
I really don't need. Indian Giver.
They did cover Indian Giver.
Did they?
It's awesome, actually.
Oh shit! Wait a minute. You are dropping a bomb.
I'm not fucking with you.
I didn't know about this. Ramones did Indian Giver?
I think it was a B-side. It's on Ramones Mania.
What?
It's actually awesome. Their cover of Indian Giver is really good, dude.
Oh. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Acid Eaters could have been that, and it wasn't.
Well, I haven't heard it, so
dude, you gotta check it out.
I hate that song to begin with, so I mean... Okay, well, number 13.
So good.
Number 13. Adios Amigos, 1995.
And fucking good riddance if that's the album you're going to give us.
Okay, now, I do have a favorite track on this album, though. It's Not For Me To Know. That's easily my favorite track on that record. I think that's pretty decent. But outside of that, I mean, way too many. Like, there are like 3 or 4 CJ lead vocals on this record. The one, he does a song called Scattergun. That's one song that he sings on this that I thought was pretty good. Got a Lot to Say. That is a particularly shit track on this album. That one is like, okay, I mentioned my most favoritist. My least favoritist is Got a Lot to Say. So, and then what's with Joey writing a song called Life's a Gas that kind of rips off the T-Rex song, Life's a Gas.
Yeah.
Like he, because there's the melody like, da, 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 and he actually does that, oh. It's like, come on, man, really?
Just covered at that point.
Yeah, I mean...
Interpolating. Mm-hmm. Not good.
Born to Die in Berlin lifts the guitar riff from No Fun But the Stooges. It's not a really great track. It's the last track on the album, so it's like their final track, so to speak. So I do think it's kind of cool that they brought Dee Dee in.
Right.
On that, but they brought him in on a shit track. Okay, so number 12. Brain Drain from 1989. Oh, man. Oof.
I am shocked.
Are you?
Not that it ranks low, but there are other things that somehow beat out Brain Drain.
Yeah, well, I will tell you, the bottom, at least 5, if not 6 albums, could almost go in any order.
I feel you there.
There are different things that could change this to that and that to this. This is what I landed on. But what I wrote for this album is, this is the last one I have. Mm-hmm. So basically I bought the records of everyone up to this one, and the last 3 I just didn't even fucking bother with. I can't stand the production on this. The mix sounds crowded. Like, there's way too many guitars on it. The songs suck. They brought in Jean Boudoir from the Plasmatics to produce the singles, which do sound better, but it still has that sort of crap late 80s trying to get a hit sound that I just don't like.
I love that sound.
And this...
Point of fact. I love the production of that album.
Yeah, well, okay, so number 11. Mondo Bizarro. 1992. Joey sounds much better on this album than on Acid Eaters, which was, of course, only a year later. Joe McGinty is on this one as well. Vernon Reid is on this one.
Yeah.
This record sounds so much better than Brain Drain to my ears, but the songs are just so weak. They unfortunately became a mere imitation of themselves, you know? And that's just, yeah. Number 10. Halfway to Sanity, 1987. This is what I wrote. I Want to Live is a good single. The rest sucks. That's what I have to say about that album.
Sharp and to the point.
That is my full
summary.
Right in there.
Yeah, the full thing, yeah.
Anything else off Halfway to Sanity?
Number 9. Animal Boy.
Of course, it's Animal Boy.
I never liked Somebody Put Something in My Drink. I always thought that was terrible.
That is a horrible song.
I think Mental Hell is pretty good. Probably one of their better late period tracks as far as I'm concerned. Something to Believe in is okay.
I like it. It's Ramones Aid.
Remember
the video?
Yeah,
you remember the video?
Yeah, I remember the video for it, yeah. But see, they of course, they named the album after the second track, Animal Boy, but what they should have done is named it after the sixth track, which is called Crummy Stuff.
Crummy Stuff.
Zing!
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. So number 8.
Oh, my God.
Number 8. You know, I've talked a lot of shit about Pleasant Dreams, and I don't really like that album, but compared to everything else I've just discussed, I mean, we're kind of out of the wilderness now. I mean, you know,
you're at least willing to admit that much, right?
Well, if I was going to have to put on a Ramones album, and my choice was between Pleasant Dreams and everything else I've just mentioned, yeah,
Pleasant fucking
put
Dreams.
Pleasant Dreams on it.
Give that shit 2 spins.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I had trouble deciding whether I wanted Pleasant Dreams below or above Subterranean Jungle. Basically, this one is weaker in the song department, in my opinion, but it sounds way better. It's sonically a far more pleasant album to listen to, but at the end of the day, superior songs won out because at my number 7 is Subterranean Jungle. Now, 1983. The thin, tinny 80s production on this, it makes it sound like the soundtrack to an 80s teen B movie. Made up demos. It sounds terrible. The snare sounds fucking like he's hitting a trash can lid on the first couple of tracks. Those first 2 tracks sound like complete crap. That opening, Little Bit of Soul.
What
awful.
the fuck was going on with that? It's like they're rushing through it. Yeah, horrible.
Yeah, like it gets markedly better after those first 2.
Yeah.
But now there are some great tracks on here though that I really like. I like Psychotherapy. That's up there with the classics, I think.
I agree.
You know,
I like that
and
too.
I love the cover of Time Has Come Today, and I remember seeing that.
Is Outsider on this one?
Oh fuck, I don't remember. I don't remember.
Might be.
But I remember when the video for Time Has Come Today hit, and I remember watching that and being like, oh man, I really liked it, you know. But yeah, see, basically what it's down to is that Subterranean Jungle, I think, has the better songs, but it sounds shittier. Pleasant Dreams sounds better, has the shittier songs, so we're kind of doing this here. Yeah. All right. My number 6, Too Tough to Die, 1984. Now, I consider this to be the first album of the late period. You know what I mean? Because I feel like Pleasant Dreams and Subterranean Jungle are kind of like this weird mid-period that doesn't really connect to the classic stuff, and not really quite to the later stuff. It's its own era, in a way. Even though those 2 albums don't sound exactly alike, they're like almost like 2 little islands that kind of sit in the middle. Too Tough to Die, I feel like that's the beginning of the late period. Like, this is when when Joey starts doing his David Johansen voice, you know, on this album and all that kind of shit. And, you know, and Dee Dee started doing lead vocals. This is the first album where that starts to happen, I believe, right? I like the record. In fact, when I first listened to it, I was really pleasantly surprised. I don't love it as much as I used to. I've talked this album up to Tommy and been like, oh, Too Tough to Die, it's really great. And he's going, no, that album sucks. And I've always commented about that based on memory of having listened to it years ago and really enjoyed it. I went back to it this time. I still like it, but it has kind of gone...
You're starting to kind of see my point a
yeah,
little bit?
I think if I'd made this list without going back and listening, I would have put... Well, no, it's where it would have been, because I wouldn't put it above anything that I have above this now, but... I still don't think it's as great as I used to think. So my number 5... Now we are into, like, the undeniables. This is the undeniable, like... It's nothing but greatness from here on out as far as I'm concerned. But at number 5, I do have End of the Century. But I will tell you this. Do you remember Rock and Roll Radio is one of my very favorite Ramones songs. That's probably top 3 Ramones song for me.
Yeah.
That is a fucking fantastic Ramones song. Like, if the whole album had been like that, it would probably be my number 1. That is, I think, yeah.
Agreed.
And that's the thing about this album. I don't even think it's a failure in terms of the production. I just don't think the songs are as good as this stuff.
No,
before.
you're wrong. You're wrong.
And there are good songs. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't like them. Perfectly good. Chinese Rock, what a great song. But I just think the songs on the early albums... What's that?
You don't like Danny Says? Danny Says is incredible.
It's pretty good. I like it. I like it. I don't dislike it in the least. But I just don't rank it. Like, if I was going to do a top 10 Ramones songs, that wouldn't be on the list.
Wow.
Yeah. But, isn't Baby I Love You's on? Like they do Baby I Love You on. That's what a great cover of that. Now, that's what Phil Spector and the Ramones together should fucking be, you know?
He didn't want to do that. They insisted.
I know. Which is like
wrong.
he was a fucking mental patient.
Well, no, he said, I don't think it's appropriate for you guys. Are you sure you
Talk
really
about
want to do
not
this?
understanding
I
the
know who
Ramones.
you're working with, you dumbass. Oh my god.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so number 4. Number 4. Leave Home. Ramones Leave Home. I love Ramones Leave Home. I just like the others more.
Fuck are you gonna...
I do.
Fucking bullshit.
I mean, what's not to like about Leave Home? Even Carbona Not Glue. But man,
love Carbona Not Glue.
I mean, come on, there's nothing wrong with Carbona Not Glue. If you see a copy that doesn't have that, don't buy it. You have to have it with that song.
Yeah, you got to get the real one.
Yeah. My number 3 is Road to Ruin. I fucking love Road to Ruin. There was a minute there, and this is possibly sacrilege, there was a minute there where this was my favorite Ramones album.
Oh.
And it's because, well, okay, one of my other top 3 Ramones songs is I Just Want to Have Something to Do. I love that so much. One of my very favorite Ramones songs. There's a lot I love on this record.
Well, she's the one.
Yeah, I mean, come on, there's so much stuff on this.
To me, that's the standout on the entire album.
I mean, you know, and this is the first record where they fuck with the formula, you're right. They stretch out just a little bit, but only like that much. But the thing about the Ramones is they're so in such a tiny little box that even the slight deviation that this record represents is a lot to some people. It's just like, oh my god, you know, it's like it fucks up your senses, you know?
Yeah.
I come from more of a, well, we all do. I mean, I guess we all do. It isn't just me. I come from more of like a pop song. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I feel like I come from a place where a record like this that isn't exactly right with formula is still going to sit really well with me. You know what I mean? I guess is what I want to say. I like the songs. I think the songs are strong. I think it's a good, strong Ramones album. But my top 2 are better. And my number 2... I really, these 2 were going like this, and I had different reasons for wanting each of them at number 1. But I made my decision, and my number 2 is Rocket to Russia. Rocket to Russia. Now, arguably, I think objectively, this is probably the best Ramones album. I feel like this is where everything just fucking hits. Like, I think this is the best collection of songs. This is where everything... I feel like this is their moment where they are ready to be all they can be. And then it's time to just go off and do other things that just aren't you after that, or don't quite hit the mark after that. You know, I feel like, yeah, that's just like the epitome of the Ramones. But the reason I put it at number 2 is because my number 1, the first Ramones album, as a collection of songs, it's just below Rocket to Russia, but this is the Ramones in their purest form. When I listen to that, I feel like I'm fucking seeing them live. Like, I feel like I'm at a fucking Ramones show when I listen to that record. That's like the Ramones sweating on you, that record. And that's just, I feel like that is the purest Ramones. And now, that wouldn't elevate that album to number 1 if it didn't have the songs. And it does have the songs. So,
yeah.
You know, yeah. So there you go. I mean, and talk about a big bang. Fucking the first Ramones album? Jesus.
Come on. Blow your brains out immediately. Like, what is going on here? And then it's like, wait a minute, how many songs are on here?
30?
What?
30, something like that.
You know, and you go to see a half-an-hour Ramones show, you hear 55 songs.
Well, and what's great, too, this is just the set, the deluxe set of CDs, but there's also a record in here. They had, at the time, they wanted to do a mono mix of this album, but in 1976, they kind of were like, you know, that wasn't going to fly. So they wanted to do it, but they didn't. There's a new mono mix of this album on vinyl in here. It fucking kills.
Yeah.
Have you heard the mono
No.
mix? Oh, man. That is the way to hear this album. Because the thing about the original album, the way they panned it, you know, there's a lot of space and everything. This, it's just so condensed. It's like the guitars sound tougher on it because it's in mono. It's because that's how mono kind of reacts. It pushes out more air. Mono, the first Ramones album, I recommend it. Yeah.
Mono, it's the way to go.
Back to mono.
Back to mono.
Yeah. All right, so there you go. That is my Ramones list. Actually, it's our top 4 or 5 are in the same exact order.
Yep.
As it turns out, I
had no idea.
Yeah.
Had no idea.
We conspired against you.
Hey,
We conspired
you're both
against
wrong,
you.
though.
No, we're not.
Wrong.
No.
Wrong.
No.
Woo.
Yo, what's up? A lot of you didn't vote last year.
A lot of you weren't even registered. If you think that keeps the politicians up at night, forget it.
A lot of them don't want you to vote. That's why they make registering so hard.
Makes what?
Washington, what are you afraid of?
All right.
Yeah.
And I guess we already did the worst of the Ramones. That was earlier. We did the worst of section at the beginning.
Yeah,
of
we
the
got that out of the way.
Yeah.
All right, well, everybody, that is our ranking of the Ramones albums. Thanks for watching. And thank you for watching all of our videos. Thank you for subscribing. If you have, but if you haven't, maybe subscribe. And if you do, click the little bell. Notifications. Yeah, but you might want to come back. All you Ramones fans, you might want to come back next week because we're going to be continuing our Albums of the Year series. And we're going to be discussing our favorite albums of the year 2015.
Ooh.
Yeah. These guys, all the runners-up they're going to have on their list. It's going to be it's going to be a 2-hour episode.
So many runners-up.
Can't even begin to list all the albums I like from those years.
Yeah, there's so many.
Yeah. Where do I even start?
It was so hard to only have 20.
Yes, we need to have our special years like we did with the singles. And
Yeah.
Our 20 album list.
20 albums.
But yeah, for those of you who are going along with this on this ride with us and going through the whole series and watching us kind of go with these later years, we're going to start peppering in other types of videos to kind of, you know, bring it up a bit and kind of change it up and
take it up a notch.
Take it up a notch. Maybe we can discuss things that we really love.
Like anything else but these
Remember
years.
when we used to do that?
Oh my god.
Like anything else but these years.
Look back on that so fondly.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
I mean, I say that. Of course, there are a lot of albums that I really love from these years. But, you know, even the albums that I love from these years, I'm not going to put them in, you know, the same
No.
category with the ones that I love from the 70s. And
Think back fondly to only 24 episodes ago when we were discussing
only
music I
two
liked.
dozen?
yeah.
Oh
But-
my gosh. How
all
far
right,
are we
everybody.
gonna go? Are we gonna go?
2024.
We are?
We're going all the way.
Depending. I mean,
Well, depending on when we reach that point.
if we're far enough into
the
the year
year.
to actually do a list for the year, then we'll do
Yes.
2024. What could end up happening for 2024, normally what I have done in the past or have ideally wanted to do is do year-end videos of that year. I didn't do one for 2023 this past year because I knew we would be doing it for this series. So 2024 could end up just being like an end of the year, New Year's kind of video, maybe. I don't know. Because you might want to get as much of the year behind you as possible in hopes of maybe actually having some albums on the list.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you next week for 2015. Bye.
Bye.
And, oh, well, good. I just, do this. Make sure that the focus is right. Because, you know, if you do that, I'm worried that it might.
Oh, yeah, it changes it. Oh, neat.
Well, it may not. I'm
Okay.
just being.
So that you don't end up with a blurry video. Yeah.
Is the word. All right.
Had a dog in for grooming yesterday named Focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got to be in full focus for this. Because we're focusing on the Ramones.
And there was also Hocus and Pocus were also puppies in that litter.
I tried to. They didn't know what I was talking about.
Oh,
Oh well.
that's bogus.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Well, all right.